Chris Graham here for Trailblazer RV. We're going to take you through an RV orientation on this 2020 KZ Durango Half Ton 250 RES. Starting right here at the front of the fifth wheel, where you've got your RV battery. So the battery is installed in a vented box, vented out the front of the trailer. It's a flooded wet cell battery, so it will require a little bit of maintenance. We recommend once a year popping the two caps off the top of the battery and checking the fluid levels in those cells. If any of them are a little bit low, you can just top it up with some distilled water and put a good charge on the battery. Also recommend removing the battery for winter storage and storing it inside somewhere where it's not going to freeze. This RV has a battery disconnect switch on it, but even disconnected, given enough time, the battery will eventually discharge, and once it's discharged it can freeze, and once a flooded wet cell battery freezes, it's no good. So recommend removing the battery in the spring. There's two leads going to the battery, a red positive and a black negative. Make sure you hook red to positive, black to negative. Right here in the front of the trailer, you've got your switch for your power landing legs. Extend and retract, very simple. Some storage inside the front area, and this one is open to your pass-through storage as well. Here on the side of the fifth wheel is where we've got the propane system. So these are dual 30-pound propane tanks. Both of these are full right now with an automatic switchover propane regulator. You can see right now the arrow pointed to this. It's making this the supply bottle and this the reserve bottle. What we recommend is opening both bottles. As I open this one, the sight glass will go from red to clear. And as long as you have both bottles open, the regulator will deplete the supply bottle first and then switch and pull propane from the reserve bottle. Once the supply bottle is empty, the sight glass will go back to red. You can switch the regulator over to the other bottle and remove the first bottle to go and refill it without ever shutting down your propane system. Here at your pass-through storage compartment, you've got a few things. Your 30 amp power cord is stored in here. Many of the sites that you visit will have 30 amp power. You can plug in with the power cord. We also supply the park adapter to break that down to 15 amp household style power. There's a jack crank here for your front landing gear. Should you ever need to, you can crank your front landing gear manually, and that's done from the other side. I'll show you when we get around to the other side. This is also where you've got your plumbing docking station. So basically with this docking station you can control whatever you want to do with your fresh water system by the positioning of these two valves. So if you want to hook up to city water, leave the valves off and off as they are now. If you want to dry camp and pump water from your freshwater tank, A off and B on. So now you can pump from the freshwater tank. You want to pressure fill the tank using the water inlet, so the city water inlet to fill the freshwater tank, on and off. If you want to fill or sanitize the tank, drawing fluid from the siphon line, you can fill the pump or fill the tank by turning them on and off, opening this valve and putting this into a jug of antifreeze or tank sanitizer. And to winterize the water lines, turn these off and off, turn this valve on, and you can pump directly through your water lines from the antifreeze jug. You've also got a sewer tank flush system here. When you're dumping your black holding tank, hook a hose up to this and it'll spray out the inside of the tank and keep the monitor probes cleaned off and monitor panel reading properly. This is also where you've got your satellite and cable TV hookups and your outside shower. Outside shower just hooks right on to there and has hot and cold water. You can also use this with the tank flush if you want to use the water from the freshwater tank to flush your holding tank. You can hook that up in a circuit. You'll hook up your sewer hose here for your tank draining, and you'll find your valve handles here. So you've got two valve handles, a black and a gray. The black is your sewage, your black water. Always dump this one first, and then once it's finished dumping, close this valve and open the gray to use the gray water, the sink and shower water, to kind of flush all of the contents through the hose. You've also got on this model a second sewer hookup at the back for a second gray tank. I'll show you that when we get there. We've also got here low point water line drains. So you can, if you open up all of the taps in the trailer and open these two valves, these are the lowest point of the water system. This will drain all of the water from the water lines. That's not sufficient for winterizing. We still recommend you run plumbing antifreeze through all of your fixtures for when it comes time to winterize. Your freshwater drain we'll find right here just in front of the axles. That valve is open now, so we know the fresh tank is drained, but I'll close that so we're ready to fill that tank. Right here is your hot water tank. And this is a gas electric hot water tank. If you're parked somewhere where you have electricity, you can turn this black rocker switch to the on position to use the tank on electricity. There's also a second switch in the inside that will have to be on for that. You've got two black reset buttons here, and should you ever overheat the tank by starting it up with no water in it or not full of water, you'll have to reset these before you can start the tank again. And this is also where you'll drain the water from the hot water tank by pulling the plug out of the bottom of the tank. So 1 1/16 inch socket to remove that plug, and on the end of the plug is an anode rod about this long that will corrode over time to help preserve the inside lining of the tank. It can get quite pitted and corroded before it needs to be replaced, but it will ultimately need to be replaced typically every 3 to 5 years depending on the water quality. Before you pull that plug, make sure to use the pressure relief valve to bleed any pressure off of the water system so that it's not under pressure when you remove the plug. Right here is where that 30 amp power cord connects, and you've got a little sewer dumping light here. Here at your running gear, your tires are inflated to 80 psi, and we do recommend running them right at 80 psi. And lug nuts are torqued to 100 foot-pounds. We do recommend periodically retorquing your wheel nuts on a towable RV and repacking your wheel bearings. This one has easy lube axles, so if you pop this KZ center cap off of here, it'll expose a grease zerk, and you can use a grease gun to grease your inner and outer wheel bearings. That does not eliminate the need to repack your wheel bearings, but as long as you're giving it some fresh grease every once in a while, it prolongs the intervals. So instead of repacking bearings every year, perhaps you repack your bearings every 3 to 5 years. Right here at the back is where that second plumbing connection is, and your second gray valve to drain your kitchen gray water. Your sewer hose is stored right here in the sewer hose carrier, just ahead of the spare tire. Spare tire, as you can see, is underslung. That cranks down from the other side. This Durango has manual rear stabilizer jacks, so when you get the RV parked on the site and relatively level, you can crank these down to be snug with the ground, but you don't want to actually lift the fifth wheel with them. They're not designed to support that kind of weight. You have a hitch on the back of this one at a little bit under 30 feet total overall length. This fifth wheel is well within the length restrictions for double towing in Alberta. The hitch weight limit is 300 pounds on this hitch, and the total trailer limit 3,000 pounds. Here on the camping side, you've got a vent here for your furnace. This gets very hot, so just be aware of it. If you've got young kids around the trailer, make sure they know not to touch that. And an outside TV area with TV antenna and cable hookups and 110 volt power. And right inside here, again, the pass-through storage compartment, and back to the battery area. We missed this as we started, but this is where you would manually crank those power jacks from should you ever need to. Your entry step is the solid step, so it folds up right into the door frame of the RV. To release it, push the lever and fold it forward. These legs are height adjustable, so if you're at a very unlevel site, you can adjust the height of those. And your awning is controlled from right inside the door. So I'll step inside to show you how the awning extends. We find the controls for awnings and slide outs and everything right here in the cabinet. So if we press the awning extend, that awning will extend 8 feet. You don't have to extend it the full 8 feet. If you've got a tree or another RV in the way, you can stop it halfway out. But if we go ahead and extend it the full 8 feet, and this is the height adjustable power awning. So to adjust the height, very easy. Just pull down on this lower arm to lower one side to control where your rainwater runs off. Before you bring the awning back in, we recommend putting both sides back up to their full height. That way it'll ensure that the awning canvas rolls up straight on the roller tube. Follow me inside to go through a few more things. Right next to the awning button is the slide button. So same thing, just press and hold the out button to extend the slide out. The slide out extends 3 feet. It's an electric rack and pinion driven slide out, so it drives from the bottom. And you'll see as it reaches its full extension, it'll kind of sink down a little bit to make a flush transition with the floor. Just like so. When you hear that ratcheting sound, you know the slide's fully extended. You can remove your hand from the button. 2 switches inside here, one for your main entry lights and one for your outside, or sorry, one for your forward hallway lights. The central control panel here is where you can control your awning light, as well as the light on your front cap. Your water pump can be turned on from here, and your water heater can be activated on electricity or propane gas. Remember, if you're running your water heater on electricity, you'll also need to have that black rocker switch on the outside of the tank turned on. To start up the hot water heater on propane, turn the switch on. The red fault light comes on, showing that the burner is not running. But if we give that just a second, we'll hear the DSI spark and the burner ignite. Just like so. The water will take 20 to 25 minutes to come up to temperature. Also on the control panel is where you can monitor your battery level. You can see that your battery is good, low, fair, good, and charging. Your fresh tank is completely empty right now. Black tank and gray tank are also completely empty. And the main tank, extra tank, is in regards to the gray water capacity. So to measure the gray water capacity of the main tank, have it in main tank. The extra tank is the kitchen galley tank to check the level of it. So that toggles between the monitors for the gray tanks. Here in the kitchen, you've got your 3-burner gas stovetop. So if we turn those burners to the pilot mode, all 3 can be lit from the piezo sparker. And always recommend that when you change out a propane bottle, or anytime you have your propane system disconnected, first thing you should do when you reconnect your propane system is come in here and just light all 3 of these burners. Once you've lit the burners, you know you've bled any air that was in that propane system off, and your automatic appliances like your fridge, hot water tank, and furnace will have no problem lighting. To light your oven, turn it over to the pilot setting on the knob. Push in and hold on the pilot knob, and the pilot will light from right underneath here. This one uses the piezo sparker. So once you've got a flame there for the pilot, continue to hold in on the knob for 10 or 15 seconds just while that thermocouple heats up, and then you can release the knob and turn it up to temperature to light the burner. When you're finished using the oven, you can turn it down to pilot and just leave the pilot burning, or turn it all the way off and simply relight the pilot next time you need to use the oven. And the switch next to that is for your backlit blue stove knobs. Microwave is pretty self-explanatory, a lot like the microwave in your home. The microwave, air conditioning, fireplace, and power outlets need to have electricity. You need to be plugged into power for that. And actually, in this model, you also need to be plugged into power for your heated massaging theater seating, and the TV needs electrical connection as well. Stereo is 12 volt power. So this is AM, FM, CD, DVD, USB, auxiliary, and Bluetooth. So pretty much any source you want to play through here. It does have 2 speaker zones. Zone 1 is inside speakers. Zone 2 is outside speakers. So make sure if you're inside listening to music that you've got your Zone 2 speakers turned off. Otherwise, everybody in the campground is listening to the same music you are. Here at your fridge, it's an automatic gas electric fridge. So we turn that on. We recommend leaving it in A for automatic mode. When it's in automatic mode, it'll check for electricity. If it has electricity available, it'll always run on that. But if it loses power, it'll sense that and switch over to gas. You can override the automatic to only run on electricity or only run on gas. And you might find that the fridge actually cools a little bit faster on gas. For now, we'll leave it in the automatic mode. And just a word about the fridge cooling. It does take several hours to cool an RV fridge down. So you'll want to get this turned on and start it cooling, preferably the day before you head out on a trip and load it up. This one also has some temperature adjustment, 1 being the warmest, 5 being the coldest. We usually leave it on 3 or 4, but depending on the ambient conditions, you may need to adjust that. The fireplace needs to have 110 volt power, but the controls for that are right here on the top. There's flame control, backlight, off timer, and temperature control. So you can have the electric heat element actually running, or just have the display, the fireplace display turned on. I think that pretty much covers it in the back. here on the wall is your thermostat. This controls both your heating and cooling systems. The cooling system obviously you need to be plugged into power for, but just turn the system over to cool and set the temperature that you want the system to come on at. In the fan or cooling mode, you can toggle between high and low fan settings and automatic per the thermostat, or just always on for that fan. For the heating mode, there's only one fan speed, so this switch isn't used at all in heating mode. If we turn that over to heat and turn up the thermostat, the furnace comes on immediately, but it's going to run for 10 or 15 seconds before we hear the burner light up. If we listen, we should hear that. Just like so. Now, in a few minutes, or a few seconds, we would have warm air blowing through our floor vents. Once the system comes up to temperature, or you shut it off, exactly the same thing happens, only in reverse. The burner's gone out immediately, but the furnace is going to continue to run for 30 seconds or up to a minute to go through its cycle. Right here above my head is a couple of things. Your TV antenna is here. So you can turn this whole antenna on the roof to dial in the TV signal. This is the modern digital antenna, so it doesn't need to be cranked up and down like the old analog antennas did. And here you've got a smoke detector. The smoke detector is not wired into the RV's electrical system. It uses its own 9-volt battery. So you'll want to check the battery periodically just by pressing the test button, just to make sure that that battery hasn't gone dead. And here in the bathroom, only a couple of things to talk about in here. One is this power outlet. This is your GFI power outlet, just like the ones in your home with a test and reset button. The only difference being in an RV, this is wired in series with several of the other power outlets. So if you trip your GFI, you'll lose power at several outlets. If you're ever plugged into power and you can't figure out why you're not getting any power from your outlets, come into here, press the reset button, and it'll reset that whole circuit. Anytime you're using your RV's sewer system, you'll want to make sure and use a good potent RV toilet chemical. When you add chemical, open up a package, pour it into the toilet bowl, push halfway down on the foot flush to fill the bowl with water, and then push the rest of the way down to dump the whole works into the tank. It's important to note that that chemical needs some water to activate it, so always make sure you put some water down every time you add new chemical to the tank. You'll want to add new chemical immediately after every time you dump your holding tanks. And here in the master bedroom, again, only a couple of things to cover. You've got a second TV location here in the bedroom. There will be a wood backing somewhere in this wall. Looks like it's very close to where the batten strip is installed here. If you want to install a TV mount, you've also got emergency exit windows on both sides of the bed. With this style of emergency exit window, you can open this up for ventilation. If you need to use it as an emergency exit window, it hinges all the way up. Just pull out on the red tab on the screen. We didn't find a propane leak detector. One somewhere right here. So this is your propane / carbon monoxide detector. So it'll do three things. It'll alert you to a propane leak if you have one. However, if that's the case, you'll almost certainly smell the propane before the alarm goes off. It'll also alert you to a carbon monoxide situation, in which case you wouldn't smell anything. But the third and most common thing that this does is it can alert you to a low voltage situation. This is wired into the RV's 12-volt electrical system, so if your RV battery gets very low, This will start to alarm just like a smoke detector does when its battery is getting low. So if this starts making noise, it's not necessarily alerting you to a carbon monoxide or a propane situation. It could be something as simple as a low battery. And I think that pretty much covers it. Hopefully you've learned something about the 2020 Durango Half Ton 250 RES. If you have any questions, you can always get a hold of us here at Trailblazer, or you can check our website, trailblazerrv.com. Thanks for watching.